Thank you all for coming in. It's lovely to see some familiar faces and some new ones as well. Thank you all for joining. We're going to talk about how to build long-term belief in your brand. So I suppose I should start by defining what I think of as belief. And belief is really about trust, it's about loyalty, and it's about bringing regular customers to you and regular employees to you. So loyalty and trust is really important for brands. For employees, it's really important that they believe in what you stand for as a brand, and they want to contribute to that, and they're passionate about working for you. For customers, it's important that they believe in what you do, because loyal customers come back again and again, and they buy from you on a regular basis. They become loyal long-term customers. And investors, another really important thing for larger companies, it's important to have investors that believe in you, because they will then invest long-term, and that obviously increases the share price. And we're going to go and talk about why, in particular, at the moment, it's really important to build long-term belief in your brand. So we all know that businesses at the moment are facing some really big challenges. Things like the Great Resignation. More people are leaving jobs voluntarily than at any time before. And according to a survey by McKinsey in March 22, half of the people leaving the workforce voluntarily aren't planning on coming back. And a survey similarly by Simply Communicate said that 68% of comms professionals say that disengaged employees is their biggest challenge. So there are now major gaps in the workforce. And that, of course, leads to the challenge of recruitment. You want the best people to work for you, but employees are far more choosy now than they were before. They can be choosy because the market is dynamic, the number of roles out there is greater than the number of suitable candidates, and experienced people can dictate their own terms of work. So indeed, if that's what they want to do, and we're seeing this ourselves, we have clients in the tech space, in the finance space, and in the retail space, and they're all saying we're having real problems getting good people. And then, of course, there's the challenge of inflation. Huge costs and increase in heating, in fuel, in food. People have less spending power than they did a year ago. So whether you're selling an essential product or a service or a luxury product, if you want customers to come to you, they need a reason to choose you. So building brand trust and brand loyalty is really, really important for business at the moment. It is what you need to do if you want to survive and thrive in the current climate. Customers choose to buy from brands they trust and connect in. Employees choose to work for brands they trust and connect with. And investors choose to invest in brands they trust and connect with. People need to believe in your brand if you want to survive and thrive. So today we're going to talk about how to build that belief. But before we go on to how to do it, I just wanted to talk about the importance of purpose at the moment. Purpose is really important on the business agenda, and it's risen over the last 10 years, and in particular over the last couple of years. And we think there are a couple of reasons around that. The first one, fairly obvious, it's the pandemic. Over those first few months of the pandemic, we had a real chance to think about our positioning in the world, what we stand for, what's important to us, you know, what's important in terms of the planet, in terms of the people, in terms of the people closest to us. And I think we now expect companies to do the same. We expect them to really care about the planet and care about their people. A recent IBM report asked CEOs, how are you going to thrive in a post-pandemic world? And the top performing companies said a sense of purpose and mission was really important, far more than those that were underperforming. The second thing is the younger generation. Now, I have two daughters that are in their early 20s, so Gen Z and millennials. Purpose is really important for them. A survey by Deloitte said that 47% of millennials educate themselves on brands' environmental impact, and 22% reduce their engagement with the brand because of the CEOs, or would reduce their engagement with the brand because of the CEO's political views. I know from my daughters that purpose and working for an organization that is purposeful is really important to them. And a purpose, when it's deployed well, also makes a big impact on the bottom line. Survey by Porter Novelli said that brands with purpose are 78% more likely to be remembered. They're 78% more likely to want to work there, people want to work there, and people are 72% more likely to forgive the company if it made a mistake. I've people that know me know I've been working in this business for quite a long time. Before I moved into brand film, I worked at the BBC, and I was thinking about my time there a little while ago, and I realized that purpose was really important to me when I was working at the BBC. Many of you will be aware that the BBC is 100 years old this year. Their first broadcast was the 18th of November, 1922. So in November this year, they're going to be 100 years old. And right from the very start, they set their purpose really clearly. I think literally before they started, they said, our purpose is to inform, educate, and entertain. And I used to direct some of the big series like Holiday, Top Gear, Crime Watch, Gardener's World, and I was really proud of that purpose. I knew that my job at the BBC was to inform, educate, and entertain, and I loved that. And I know the people that working with me were really proud to deliver on that purpose as well. And I really believe now that the companies who will do best going forward are those that have a really strong purpose, who really clearly define and communicate that purpose. And that's important. It's not just one thing having a purpose, but you need to define and communicate it. And who make those people working for them really proud to work for that company. We work with a couple of, we work with several clients, but I'm just going to mention a couple of them now, who are very much purpose driven. The first one is Fortnum & Mason. Their purpose is we make joy. I've seen that in real life. I see it when people walk into their Piccadilly store. It's a fantastic store. People light up when they walk in the store. It's so beautiful. And I've seen it when people get their hampers delivered through the post. People light up when they get one of those hampers. I had one delivered to my mum in America last month, and somebody videoed her when it arrived, and she was just like overjoyed. Just smile on her face was amazing. But it's not just their customers. It's the way they treat their own people with real dignity and a real sense of family. That purpose of we make joy goes all the way through their brand. Another one of our customers is Legal & General. Their purpose is inclusive capitalism. Now, it's a lot more difficult to define that. It's a lot more tricky to sort of articulate it, than we make joy. But basically, they have trillions of pounds, well, over £1 trillion worth of money given to them by their customers. And their purpose is to build a better society. They take that £1 trillion worth, I think it's 1.25 trillion roughly at the moment, and they invest it in long-term assets that benefit everyone, from housing to renewable energy. So the projects that they put money into is for the betterment of everybody in the UK, all around housing, renewable energy. That they're really purposeful at their heart. And I know that a lot of their people really are passionate about working for Legal & General because of that purpose. So we talked about belief and we've talked about purpose, but how do you bring that purpose alive, and how do you make your customers and your employees really believe in you? Well, from a marketing and comms point of view, it's all about stories. Stories are really important. This is Jo Malone. Jo Malone, I'm guessing a lot of you will have heard of Jo Malone. She is an amazing entrepreneur that we filmed with recently. She's famous for her fragrances and for her candles. And it was really interesting talking to her. She said, I built my business on stories. Every scent, and you wouldn't think it, it's candles and scent, perfume and candles. But every fragrance that she developed, she has a story behind it. And she tells that story on a regular basis to people. If you walk into their store, they talk about how the scent was made. It might be her walking down a beach where she smelt something, or there's a story about how she walked down the street in the middle of lockdown and a very smart gentleman walked past her and she smelt him. She thought, right, I'm going to create something over that. She built her business around stories. Stories are important to us as human beings. We engage with them. They're our way of figuring out who we are in the world. And I think in a business sense, it's businesses' ways of working out who they are in the world. Telling our stories help employees, help customers understand who we are as a business. And it helps employees understand how they personally can contribute to that business. So when we hear a narrative, when we hear a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, we want to hear more. We want to listen. Now, I'm going to relate this in particular to film and animation because that's what we do as an agency. but stories are just important in the written form, in blogs, even in photography. One photograph can tell a story. Podcasts can tell a story. Almost any media can tell a story. Stories are really important. Steve, I hope you don't mind me quoting you. I know we've got Steve Garvey, who's the CEO of Moving Image, on with us today. Steve knows everything about brand video. He's the guy that does all the data analysis around video campaigns. He's analyzed thousands of brand videos, and he knows what works and what doesn't. And I was at a talk by Steve last week, and Steve, one of your key points was that videos without a story get little or no engagement.
Yes, that is absolutely true, and I can prove it with data as well.
Thank you, Steve. Well, I've got to say, when you revealed that, I thought that doesn't surprise me. That wasn't overly surprising to me. I probably wasn't to that many other people either. But when I was at the BBC, whether I was directing Top Gear or Gardener's World or Crime Watch, stories is how we gripped people, got them to watch. And brands are now doing the same thing. You think about Nike and the stories they tell of amazing athletes, no matter what size or background they're from, amazing athletes, or Red Bull and the incredible stories they tell. Stories are really important in connecting with your customers. And in terms of themes around stories, any story that represents your brand and what it stands for well is a good story for your brand. But there are certain themes at the moment which are really popular, and I think will continue to be popular. In short, sustainability and the environment, a lot of brands need to tick their ESG boxes, and stories about how they're doing that. It doesn't just satisfy investors, it also connects them with customers and employees. Diversity and inclusion, really big theme as well. Brand values, bringing your brand values to life. And in short, anything where you're doing good for people and the planet while still executing good business. And if that represents your brand, that's a great way of telling your story. So make those stories authentic to your brand, and then you will build belief in your brand around your people and bring your brand to life. So you've got your story. The second key element to making sure it's remembered, and making it remembered is really important, is creativity. There's so much noise out there at the moment. Advertising, comms, news, we're bombarded with messages left, right, and center. So how do you get your message to cut through? How do you make sure that it's remembered above all those other messages? Well, marketeers have known for years that creativity is how you do that. And I know some of our audience on here today might be from the comms background. If you're in comms, you are effectively marketing to your own people. You're marketing as well. So creativity works for you as well. If you do something unexpected in your story, something out of the ordinary, something that people aren't expecting, it grabs their attention. They start watching. If you think of some of the most popular adverts over the last few years, we remember them because they're different, because they're creative. We all remember the Cadbury's drumming gorilla, the Haribo, adults talking with the kids' voices, the John Lewis Christmas ads, the Marmite love it or hate it. That creativity grabs our attention. But at the same time, it has to be authentic to your brand. So you can't just jump on a bandwagon just for the sake of it. It's got to be authentic to your brand and real. So people remember creative stories. And if they remember the story, they're far more likely to remember your brand and like your brand. And that's all about building that belief in your brand. People remembering it, people liking your brand, people becoming loyal customers or loyal employees. So make your ideas unexpected, make them surprising, make them authentic, make them likable, and make them last. The next key thing with building belief, and this is probably one of the most powerful ones, is around emotion. You've got your story, you've got your creative approach. Now, if you can use emotion in there, that's when film really, really delivers. If your audience feels an emotion, then they're going to feel connected to you as a brand. when we watch something or see something or hear something that's a powerful story that evokes an emotion, that's when our brain is on fire and your message is on fire. It stands a far greater chance of being remembered. So the key to brand comms is not just information, it's emotion. And film is a really powerful way of doing that. Film resonates. I'm not just talking about making people cry or laugh. It's about moving us. It's about shaking us. It's about exciting, inspiring us. Ultimately, film can make us feel something, which is fantastic. I know, Steve, you'll say that Maya Angelou, the writer and activist, didn't say this, but everywhere else online, it quotes her as saying this. So I'm not sure who did say this, but I think it was Maya Angelou. She said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's the same with brands as well. People won't forget how you made them feel as a brand. So tell those stories with creativity and with emotion. My final point is around less is more. Now, again, I'm talking, I suppose, around film, but it could be around any sort of communications medium. This isn't about the length of the story. It's more about the amount of messages you're trying to cram in there, or amount of information you're trying to cram in there. Film is a fantastic medium for connecting emotionally, but it's not a great medium for imparting lots of information. I believe that people want messages quickly. I know, Steve, you say people will pay attention to a story if it's longer, if it's a good story, and that's true. But I think generally people like messages fairly short. It doesn't necessarily mean information, but it is about the amount of messages you try and get in there. If you imagine lying on a bed of nails, if you're lounging on a bed of nails, nothing's going to get through. But if you have one nail, it's going to get your attention. If you've got one point that you want to get across in your film or your podcast or your advert, people remember that far more than if you try and get 10 messages in all at the same time. We made a film about 18 months ago in the middle of lockdown for a client. They sent us a script and they sent us all the messages and they said, we want to get all of this in. And we looked at it and we said, well, that's going to be about 3.5 minutes long. And this is your main film that's going to go on your website. Are you sure about that? You want it to be that long? And they say, yeah. So we made the film. They were very happy with it. They put it up. And about 2 weeks ago, they came back and they said, you were right. 3.5 minutes was too long. We need you to bring it down. And we're now doing a suite of films for them, and all of them are going to be between 60 and 90 seconds long, because they've realized there are times when 3.5, 4, 5 minutes will work. If you've got a captive audience in a room for an event, that's fine. If you want to tell a beautiful story that does have an evolving narrative, that's fine. But generally, less is more. So tap into the aspirational, not into the informational. So today we've been talking about building long-term belief in your brand. And in summary, I think using the success formula to have success is a really powerful way of doing it. So what is the success formula? Well, the success formula is telling stories that are unexpected, that have a twist that grabs your audience's attention, telling those stories with creativity so they are remembered, telling them in a credible way so they're believed, telling them with emotion to make people feel that connection. One of the most powerful things, telling with emotion. Make them simple, so one key point, not 10, and making them sincere with people that people like. And I believe if you do that, you get the holy grail of marketing and comms. You get messages that really cut through the noise and messages that are remembered. And that's ultimately what comms and marketing want to do, and what you as a brand want to do. You want to connect with your audiences in a way that they remember you for all the right reasons. So that's what we do at Kaptcha. We work with some fantastic clients. We tell their stories. We tell them in a credible, authentic way, using storytelling, using creativity, using emotion, and that connects them with their audiences. So that's my thoughts for today. I hope that was useful. I hope that was interesting, and I'm delighted if anybody's got any questions to chat further, or if anybody's got anything to add, any thoughts themselves. Very, very happy to hear from you.